theme, Applied AI. Hey, what if we did a section that was truly about applying AI? And really drilling down specifically to what does it look like for businesses to be using AI and starting to adopt it. Because I think whether you're in the construction industry or healthcare or you sell popsicles, there's so much curiosity right now in how do we start to take these tools and do more with them. People are starting to try things like, oh, I want to take this picture and turn my pets into people or my people into pets. And so as people are starting to explore, it really is already starting to reshape the work world as well. And so I wanted to explore this topic of what does this transformation look like today in 2026? Where might it continue to go? And also talk about some of the really practical, hands-on pieces of AI. When I've been to other AI events in the Twin Cities, especially, a lot of times we get into the builder and developer side of things, and I think that's wonderful. And there's also just kind of the layperson use of AI that I think is worth exploring. And so I thought that since we're talking about applied AI, what a great way to kick off the new year. And I have a construction background. As Justin said, a lot of my clients and friends are in this space, and so it felt natural for me to kind of keep the focus around that to start. But I really do believe that in any business, again, a business is a business. So whether you're selling roofs or you're selling magazines, a lot of the same core needs that business has crosses across industries. And so even though we're focusing on construction today, I think there's a lot of opportunity to learn from the discussion and think more broadly into the industries that all of us are in. And so I'd love to start just by asking you all a question before I move into our panelists. Can I just get a show of hands of how many people are actually in the construction space? It'll just help us kind of hear. Just a couple, but you came anyway, so thank you. We'll try to keep it relevant then and make sure that we're getting broad enough for all of you, okay? Well, I'm Rosalynn, like Justin said, and I can share a little bit about myself in just a minute, but I brought some friends with me. So we have Bill here, we have Nick, Jim, and Ben, some nice short names unlike Rosalynn. Good job, you guys. And so I'll just do some quick introductions. And then you all can kind of see who's who here. So I'll start with Bill over here. So Bill is next to me. He's the founding attorney and CEO of Minnesota Construction Law Services, a 13-year-old boutique firm serving Minnesota's construction industry with 900 plus contractor clients. He uses AI daily across firm operations, legal research, and marketing, including ChatGPT and legal-specific AI tools to move faster and make better decisions. Contractors don't always love lawyers, but Bill's, and Bill's not sure he does either. But he is committed to being the kind who actually helps contractors build successful businesses and hit their personal and professional goals. And maybe I'll just give a little anecdote too of partly why I picked each of these wonderful individuals. I will absolutely say, Bill, I've always really loved the way that you focus on being an educator in your space and really going so much beyond law. And so it's been really neat to see the way your organization has been adopting AI. And I think it's relevant for two reasons. One, in any of these industries that we're serving, there are the people who we think of that are very traditionally in the industry, like my friend Nick here, who we're going to talk about from Tri-State Drilling, pretty clearly a construction company, right? But Minnesota Construction Law at its heart is a construction company in that it's a service provider to that industry. And so as we're thinking about these different industries, it's important for us to consider those service partners as well. So, and you've got a law background, and we might have some legal AI questions to pop in on as well. So, so moving on then to my friend Nick. Nick brings over 20 years of experience in the construction industry, specializing in power projects, including renewable energy, transmission lines, and substations. For the past 2 years, Nick has served as president of Tri-State Drilling. And I've had the personal pleasure of getting to know you through your team, learning to adapt AI with just some foundational skills. And You're in such a really unique, neat place in your journey, so I'm excited for everyone to hear what it's been like as a leader of an organization starting to adapt, and what's kind of prompted that, how it's been going, and where you hope it continues to go as you guys grow. So, and then next to Nick, we've got my friend Jim. I'm gonna pull, I can't see. I lose you guys at the end there. Okay, so Jim is a technology and AI operator in construction and a partner at Sure Homes Pro, where he leads automation and AI implementation across a roofing company and pressure washing business. He previously founded Roofer Marketers, later acquired by Job Nimbus, a software company, giving him firsthand experience with how construction software scales. Jim also coaches for the Roofing Solar Reform Alliance and hosts the Roofing Success podcast. He's done over 280 interviews that keep him close to what's working in the field. So some really great insight, both from a practical leadership side of what his teams are doing with AI in the businesses, but also kind of some of that exposure to other businesses in the industry and how they're exploring with it. And then last we have Ben, and Ben is the founder of Simplify AI Solutions, and he's also the safety manager at Northland Masonry and Concrete. He's oversees safety on the major Amazon warehouse projects in the Twin Cities with over 20 years of construction and union and OSHA training experience. He focuses on practical AI, including his in-development platform, Constructo, which I look forward to talking a little bit more, to streamlining safety, compliance, and estimating while projecting real job site judgment. So Ben, I love that you bring to us the employee experience because you have to deal with the employers saying like, okay, we're going to move forward on this AI mission. But then you also yourself have been working to build your own AI tools that you can then share and bring to the industry. And I love the way that you've taken your specific role, adopted AI tools that you could then bring and share to other people because of your knowledge in that specific role. So we'll kind of dive in from there. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Roz. I teach people how to actually use AI in the practical sense in terms of their personal and professional lives. So I've had the tremendous fortune throughout my career to travel across the country and work with companies across the nation to help them from a strategic business planning side of things, and really focusing on bringing their people and their processes together. So I'm a very process-focused person. I've looked under the hood, as I like to say, of organizations across the U.S. and like any good mechanic, I kind of know what machines, what the different elements take to build a really good engine. And so my interest in AI really blossomed. We'll talk about that, your guys' sparks in just a minute, but it really blossomed as I saw what AI was doing, and as somebody who has been really interested in work and the future of work throughout my career, I just could not it would be silly to not be paying attention to how AI was going to reshape the future of work. And I wanted, from the core of my being, to see business owners and their employees continue to be able to survive the AI revolution. There's a lot of scarcity and fear around what AI is going to mean for people's jobs. And I really wanted to be a change agent in helping owners and leaders think about how they can create really wonderful workplaces and take a humanistic approach and empower and upskill employees in using these tools. And so I own and started AI Ready, which is an AI learning platform, and then AI Roofing Revolution, because I have a lot of roofing clients that I've worked with over the years, specifically for that industry as well, helping them focus and taking, again, these practical applications of AI for them. And then my coaching business is roofing. Okay, so let's get into it. I want to start with an easy one, hopefully for all of you, which is I want to know what your light bulb moment was when you thought, oh man, this is big. AI really matters, and I should be paying attention. So I'll give you a minute to think, and I just share my personal story real quick. I had 3 instances that were really like, oh. The first was that my husband had been using ChatGPT not ChatGPT, so I think Midjourney maybe, to design different elements for a board game he was creating. And so that was fun, and we were playing around with it, and I was like, okay, like, yeah, AI is pretty cool. You can make pictures. But to be honest, I really wasn't doing a lot with ChatGPT at first because it was kind of like, okay. Then I had an instance not long after that where my dad was talking to me, and he's like, oh, Rosalynn, you have to hear this prayer. And I was like, oh, okay. And so he played it for me, and I was like, Dad, that voice is so familiar. Who is that? And my husband's sitting on the couch, and he laughs. And he's like, that's AI. I had heard a voice, but AI voice had come so far that I recognized the AI voice, and I was not distinguishing that it was human. And then one of my friends on this very panel and I were sitting down, and we were having a conversation. Oh, there was one more thing. We were having a conversation, and we talked about voice agents. And Jim pulled up a voice agent, and we talked and interacted with it. And really quickly, again, my brain went to, I've been looking at organizations, roles, and role mapping across the organization my entire career. This is going to change everything. You know, it really is. And so that, for me, was a major spark. So I'd love to go down the line and just hear, hopefully you weren't listening to me up and you were thinking of your answers. But let's start with you, Bill. What was your spark moment?
I don't know if it was so much a spark moment as much as it was a, everybody's afraid of it, so that must be something I got to go look at. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the term of what a paradigm is, right? So a paradigm is just the way things are ordinarily done. And one of the beauties is when a paradigm shifts, everybody goes back to zero. Anybody that had an advantage loses their advantage, and everybody starts at the beginning. And I looked at this and thought, this is a paradigm shift. And it's early, and a lot of people are afraid of it. They don't know what to do with it. So if I jump in early, I've got a really good chance of getting ahead of the crew. And I'm also, I would kind of consider myself a legal rebel. I hate the billable hour. I hate the way that law charges people for work, and how many things are kept in the dark that you don't know about and don't have a lot of control over, the way that your matters might be handled by your attorney. And yet that's the traditional way that everybody is stuck buying legal services, and the way most firms are stuck delivering legal services. And so when I saw this thing and it started making noise, and especially when ChatGPT first became available to all of us, I gave it a little bit of a try, and I was just hooked. And then I think you and I talked about it a little bit,
yeah.
And you had put together your training program, and I thought, you know what, I don't know how this thing works. I don't know exactly what it does. I'm interested in digging into it, but I don't want my people to be uncomfortable or afraid or think I'm wacky and taking them places that they don't want to go and don't understand. So I brought Roz in just to sit down with my team and give them, kind of take the blinders away. And that was really the launching for us, and we've taken it from there, and we've just exploded with it.
That's excellent. Yeah. I love the mindfulness in that, right? Just that, again, as you're thinking about what it's like to sit in that owner and leader seat. If you're a consultant and you're approaching these organizations to teach them about AI, that reminder that, how this is going to be received by their employees is so important, because it's great that you're excited about that thing that you're building and you can't wait to tell them about it, or it's great that you know the strategy that's going to help them have success. But at the end of the day, the owners are very much thinking about how their employees are going to receive the tools and resources that you're providing to them. Nick, what was your spark?
Well, I think I'm going to have to hire you.
I got a card here.
Similarly, I don't really think I had a spark, so to
Okay.
speak. I haven't really actually thought of it until you asked the question. I'm a podcaster. We have Tri-State. We run out of Plymouth down here, and I'm actually out of Fargo, North Dakota, and I commute down here. If you guys have ever driven I-94 between the two, there's a lot of time to podcast. So one of my favorite podcasts is the All In podcast,
Yeah.
and they they're billionaire tech nerds, but somehow they're relatable. But just listen to them all the time talk about chat and how it's going to change things and revolutionize things. And being in the construction industry, we're usually behind most of the norms, right? So I thought, well, if we can start just looking into it and using it, maybe we got a shot at getting out ahead of the competition. So honestly, like I, signed up for ChatGPT, and I think the first thing I ever did was do a quarterly newsletter to the company, and I had to proofread my message to the company, right? And just saw what it did with that, so we started using it for more things, and some other people in the company were playing with it. Our safety manager actually is very tech savvy, so he started using it. So there was a group of us that started utilizing it a bit more, and just kind of got it into that way, a little bit more organic, I would say.
Yeah.
And just see the continued benefits. And that's what we wanted to spread across the company. That's kind of what we brought Oz in. So
Yeah.
no aha, but like just
Yeah.
kind of a slow burn to it.
Yeah, I love it. Jim?
For me, I'm a nerd, so I love this stuff. This is, I went to, my degree is in management of information systems. I did server-side programming out of college. I suck at programming, so I got it out really fast. But that's where I come from. So I was, like, the college classes that I sat in, like, we were talking about the future a lot, and it was like, wow, this is it. And so to me, it's when opportunity meets preparation. I've been preparing for this for a long time. I feel like there is an arbitrage opportunity in AI right now, that the companies that implement it and the people that implement it are going to have an advantage in the interim. My spark was, I owned a digital marketing agency, and I'm in a mastermind group, and I also coach in a roofing group, a roofing mastermind, and there was two live events about a year and a half ago, and both of them, when everyone was asked, what are we doing, what's going on, what should we be worried about, the only answer was AI.
Mm-hmm.
It was the only answer in the room. And so that was a big thing. One of my friends in the digital marketing space is a software developer also. He built a software and started showing me how the backend, the project management system that he built for his business, he started deploying AI in the background, and it started building UIs on the fly. So he would say, show me a report for this, to that, and the other thing for this client. And it would just build it. And then he would say, no, change it to this. I want to see it in this format. And it would build it. No one built it. And I was like, something's going on right here. And Natalia's like, yeah, that's.
Yes, I know.
And so that was the moment where I was like, oh goodness, this is going to be fun.
Yeah. Thank you, Jensen. Great answer. And Ben, tell us about your spark. I love that non-tech background, really,
Yeah,
right?
none at all.
So yeah, tell
No,
us.
I hadn't even
tell
owned a
us about
computer
it.
since college, like 20 years ago, so very anti-computer. Honestly, when I got into it, I was a teacher for a couple years out at our training center, and when I got out there, I saw a real need for it to teach our classes, right? So we have 60 courses we teach, and over the last 5-6 years, they've been trying to switch it over to Spanish. Of those 60 classes, we have like 4 in Spanish now. And I'm like, overnight, all 60 of these could be in Spanish. Like, there's just such a big use for this kind of thing. Not only just to write the classes too, right? So now I can just say, hey, I want a scaffold class, 40 hours a week that covers swing stages and frame scaffold, and it fills in the dots, right? And then I can proofread it and make it my own. But that's kind of how I got my foot in the door. My aha moment for my business was personal. At home, we had hail damage, and tree had came over from our neighbors and put a hole in my roof that was about this big. And yeah, it was a fight. We had a really good contractor, and he fought back and forth with the insurance company, and I'm sure everyone loves insurance companies here, but after 6 months of back and forth, they said they were gonna give us spray foam to fill in the hole. It was about $500 worth. And I knew this isn't right. I knew this isn't compliant. I know this isn't local business codes. And again, I felt powerless in the situation. My contractor felt powerless. And I just didn't know where to begin after that. So I was already using ChatGPT at the time. And so I fed in my policy, and I said, here's the letters from their response and what they're saying. And we had gotten nowhere to where we were going to get lawyers involved to kind of take that next step and pay them. And instead of doing that, we wrote this letter to them using ChatGPT and pretended my wife had wrote it. And when they got it, there was just dead silence for a day. And then my contractor called on the second day and was like, I'm so sorry, like, I worried, I'm scared, I don't know how to handle this. That was the best letter we've ever seen. Like, can I use that to help my other clients? Like what is going on here? He literally has been trying to hire my wife ever since. And she did work for him for a short minute, but it was this like aha moment where it's like, oh my gosh, this is such a great use case for this. And so he unofficially became my first customer, and then we had hail damage the next year where we ended up needing to replace our roofs. But our first claim went from that $500 they were going to give us to $13,000 for a full roof replacement. And it just took that one letter, because again, ChatGPT nailed him to the wall where it's like, please tell me in writing you want me to ignore state building codes, local ordinances, and everything else, and just pinned him to the wall where they couldn't weasel out of it. And so we had a new person on our case the next day, and then a roof approval the day after that. And then a year had went by, and I'd been kind of helping him a little bit on the side with it, and we had another claim, a bunch of hail damage, and that one started at $13,000. They were going to replace a bunch of the siding and roofing, but again, with a little AI and a conversation back and forth, that same claim went to $68,000. We were able to replace all of our roofs, our siding, and I got a couple extra doors I wasn't really planning on. But again, I just saw such an amazing use for this, and so he became my first client, and he actually started like a division of his company to just kind of help other contractors with this. So he uses Constructo to teach his new employees, right? He can do that talk, and you can get somebody who's right in the field and can like jump right into it and take those emails, feed them in here, and kind of learn on the fly. So he's not answering 500 phone calls. This kind of takes all that low-hanging fruit, and if they can't figure it out from there, then it goes up to him. But yeah, he started Fair Claims Fighters, and he's been doing this for other companies now, and he's still my first customer that's still really happy, and he's looking, we have a few different versions of this now, and he's kind of testing them out for me now too. But yeah, that was kind of what started my business, and that idea is like, everyone should be pushing back. I mean, insurance companies are using the same stuff to push on you, so why not, use the same tools to fight back a little bit.
That's so great, Ben. And what I love about that anecdote too is the reality. We talk about this all the time in our sessions, where we're really big on helping people understand, organizations understand, that it's the personal use cases. It's people experiencing these tools in their day-to-day lives for something that matters to them on a personal level. Whether it's their kids' sporting events, or fighting back on a claim, or dealing with medical issues, whatever. These use cases that they start to experience and explore in their personal lives actually start to unlock use cases for them in their professional lives. So I'll give you this example. Our family got a new vehicle. We've got a back row relaxation package that we got for the kids. Immediately my 10-year-old son locks his seat into a full tilt position. My 86-year-old grandma is gonna sit in the car, and now she's in zero gravity position in our car. Great. Okay, we can't figure out how to get it. We take it to the dealership. They're supposed to fix it for us. It's fixed. We get it back. My son sits in the car. I kid you not, within minutes, it does not work again. And I'm like, what in the world, right? And so then, of course, guess what? I teach people how to use AI, so of course I'm going to use ChatGPT and ask it not only to check Reddit and check the Kia dealership and, hey, here's the manual. Because I'm old school, to be honest, I will admit, my first step was to pull out the manual. Because my dad fixed cars with that manual, the book, the old book, right? And so that's what you do. You pull out the book first. Couldn't find the answer. Okay, here, you read the manual. You find me the answer. And within minutes, my seat was fixed. We resolved the problem. I didn't have time to keep looking. I was not going back to the dealership again. Resolved, right? But now that same concept of, hey, what I learned is that when I have a problem, I can take a long, complex manual, put it into my AI tool, and I can use my AI to help simplify, look through, read that complex information, right? So if I'm an employee, I'm a user of a tool or a product, and I'm trying to learn AI, and I have an in-person, personal experience, I can take that same experience and now broaden it to my work world, right? And so Ben, I just love that example because I think you do such a great job of illustrating that everything that I have experienced in working alongside organizations in the past year who are trying to adopt AI it comes down to opening and expanding their minds on use cases. And so I asked each of you, hopefully you did your homework, to think about a use case, or two if you want, that you've been doing and practicing in your worlds. And I always tell people too, it doesn't matter if it's small. It doesn't matter if it's small, because it might seem simple to you, but if you're getting lift from it, if you're getting use from it, it's invaluable, right? So it matters. The reason I say it's invaluable is twofold. One, like, actually we can put an ROI to that, right? We can measure that and we can put value on that. And I really believe that AI has this compounding effect. And so when we are looking at that experience and somebody has success and they're like, oh, this is working for me, it gives them an opportunity to then say, I'm gonna try something else. So that to me is why I say it's invaluable. So, okay, who wants to go first? Who has a use case that you've been utilizing in your businesses that you feel like is worth sharing, opening up the minds to some of our friends here today on how you're using AI?
I'll jump in. First, I'm glad to hear that it worked out well for you, Ben. But
Next time I'll call you.
what I would say is you could have made more people happy if you'd have hired the attorney to use AI to do that letter than everybody.
I didn't know there were attorneys that did this.
And we wouldn't have charged you by that. We've been using it quite a bit, and what I'm trying to do is to get more of my team to use chat. So one of my admin assistants, who kind of generally does a little bit of everything, has been supporting us in some of the marketing work that we do, and we send out a newsletter regularly, and she's been responsible for basically doing the emailing part of it. So what we asked her to do now was, I want her to put the content in the letter, in the newsletters. And I sat down first, because I've seen a lot of marketing, use chat to create content for your marketing newsletters. So, and do that through a GPT. Put together a program that has chat asking you a few pieces of information specific to the article you want written. And you can create basically all of your newsletter content for a year in half a day. I don't know how to write a GPT. And like a lot of things, I start thinking, okay, where do I go? Do I Google how to do it? And it kind of occurred to me, weird thing, why don't you ask chat how chat writes a GPT? In fact, let's go one step further. Why don't I just ask chat to write the bloody GPT? So okay, I'll give that a shot. How do you do this? And it wrote this GPT that would write this particular kind of an article that we wanted in the newsletter. So I gave that to her, and I said, I'm not going to tell you how to use it. I just want to see if you can figure it out. And it took her no time to figure it out. She then went the next step, and she created herself 2 new GPTs to write 2 more different kinds of articles that are going to be part of the newsletters that we wrote. And what I find most rewarding for me is that she's fired up about this. Yeah. She figured it out. And I think as an employer with employees, one of the things that most of our employees are scared to death about is what we keep hearing, AI is going to take their job away. And the thing that is most important to understand is that chat is going to take admin work away. And if you're going to survive in this world, you have to learn how to use the tool, and you have to be able to move to that next level up. And one of the analogies that some of you may know of a guy named Damon Reel. Damon gave one of the analogies that he used in a seminar I was in recently was he talked about when Excel spreadsheets came out. And many of you may remember the old green bars. You could get the books that were about this wide so that you had enough columns and writing. And when I was in college, one of my part-time jobs at University of Wisconsin Hospitals and Clinics was to update the budget for the next year, right? So, okay, we got a 3% increase. We had to go every single line item, one at a time, month by month, 3%, write it down. We used to have contests on how many rolls of paper you'd go through in a day. And so the expectation was that when Excel came out, accountants would disappear. Right? Because they weren't going to be doing any of that work anymore. What happened? We end up with more accountants because work that accountants didn't have time to do, the analysis work, the evaluation work, the high-level accounting work, they never had the time to do and couldn't do it until this tool came out. And suddenly there were services that they were able to provide to their customers that they could never provide before that people didn't know. So helping our team members learn how to move up the scale to more thinking about what they do and how they do it, not only it makes them feel better and makes them more employable, takes the fear of what AI is going to do away, but it also grows my entire organization, because now instead of operating at this level, we're going to have everybody operating at this level.
Yeah, great answer, Bill. I love it so much because I really believe it's important when we're thinking about upskilling with our employees in terms of AI. It's not just about learning how to use the tools. We're actually talking about learning skills that traditionally have been held at manager or leadership levels. So if you think about the fact that this kind of example of use cases where now employees can have a data analysis that's right in their fingertips, right? But what happens if that employee doesn't know how to ask the questions of that tool because they've never done any type of strategic thinking in terms of their roles? They've never been asked to start to think about what numbers are influencing the work that they do. And so being able to upskill, not just from an actual tool use standpoint, but into these like critical thinking, what typically has been a leadership level thought, I think is gonna be a critical upskill for our workforces in the future. So I love that, Bill, thank you. Nick, what about for you? What's a use case that you've been able to implement at Tri-State?
So when you asked the question, two came to mind. Like for us, the two things we're trying to do with AI is like data analysis and consumption, and then the personal use side of things, which is like personal assistant type stuff. So that's where we're at with our journey in AI. So in our construction role, we drill holes for a living. So we deal with we gotta get the job out of the ground, right? So that's the toughest part of the job because no one knows what's underneath the ground. So we get geotechnical reports that are pages and pages and pages long with boring logs and assumptions of what's going on and geological formations and history of the regions and whatever else. So between that and the RFPs that we go through and the design documents that the foundations require, it would take an estimator between 4 and 12 hours to go through all that information just to understand what we're dealing with under the ground to then start estimating the project, right? So you're just basically analyzing data. You're taking sheets over and over and looking at the same thing. So that's where we're at, is we're training agents right now to be able to review geotechnical reports and RFPs, to then disseminate that into the spreadsheets that we utilize to look at each location that we're going to be drilling holes at, to understand rock formations or sand features or whatever that subsurface condition is, so then we can decide how we're going to attack that project, how long it's going to take us, the manpower needed, the type of equipment, those type of things. So we're trying to eliminate that 4 to 12 hours on the front end of the 200 to 400 bids we process a year to allow our estimators to do what they really need to do, is dial in the numbers, work with the client and win the job. So yeah, that's the data analysis piece. So that's one big one. And then the personal use. This last year we actually didn't have an HR manager for like 4 months. So running a 150 person company without an HR manager is a little rough. So we were looking at hiring folks, and we didn't have job descriptions created for the new positions that we were gonna hire. So I'm like, I need to create a job description. So I'm gonna sit down now and take 4 hours out of my day to create a job description for, I forget which position. I think it was a equipment manager or something like that. Like, I'm gonna have chat write this for me. So I went in there and I need a job description for job duties, proficiencies. This is the type of background I'm looking for. Had to build it out, kept refining it down to what I liked, and then fed it what our standard job description form looks like, built it out in that. And now our whole company, whenever they're trying to hire people, it's the first thing is, well, I'm gonna go and have Chad build me a job description for this position, and now that's how we start with our templates. So using it to be your template creator instead of sitting down and having someone develop that template over and over and over again. So that's more on the personal side.
That's great. Nick, can I ask for your team, you know, Billy already talked kind of about how general sentiment for a lot of employees is, what is this gonna mean for my job? We've talked about how the construction industry is typically a little lagging on tech adoption. How has it been with your team? Would you say generally, just from like a reception side of things, do you see, like, what does that look like for you?
Surprisingly, like, open to it. But I think it's just like anything else, especially in the construction world. It seems like people are always resistant to things until they see how useful it is for them.
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, roofing, like hammer and nail. I'm sure hammer and nailing, we're gonna hammer. All of a sudden, a nail gun comes along, and like, I'm not gonna use this thing. Then they see how many roofs they can get done, and all of a sudden, now the nail gun's the greatest thing, right? So I think that's how it's been for us. Is you know, we're a 70-year-old company with individuals that have been there for half of those years, right? So to teach an old dog new tricks can be tough, but I think you just give them that exposure, and we've done that enough. And then bringing, you know, Rosalynn with giving them some of the basics and simple wins. That's how they've started adopting it more. So surprisingly for me, there's been a lot more adoption of it than I thought we would have in the time that we've been utilizing it this year.
That's great. I love to hear that. And I think it's so true that when people see the success, like, it's gotta be worth my time. So whether you're a developer and you're building something for a company, or you're helping your organization move the needle, I think those quick wins are something to kind of put a pin in, right? And be thinking about, what are those quick wins that I could give? You know, maybe you're looking at a full-scale deployment, breaking it down into those smaller, like, just giving some early success so that people can feel like, yeah, okay, I'm more receptive, I'm open, show me more. So this is fantastic. Jim?
Any business owners in the room? A few business owners, anyone in sales, marketing? Who's in sales, marketing? That's what I focus on. So I'm more in the, I live in the customer journey. So from the awareness through the consideration, the purchase stage, fulfillment of the services, and into loyalty and automating through there. And we found that when I had my marketing agency, we worked with over 250 roofing contractors, and we had data that said that 40% of the leads that we generated for their businesses, no one answered the phone or responded to those leads. And they would come to us and say, "My goodness, but I don't have enough business, Nick." Like, well, you didn't answer your phone, and you didn't. There's other levers along the way too. So some of the other levers is, what are your people saying? And that's what we built recently, built some automations around. So we have a CSR team, and that CSR team does the appointment sets with all of our inbound and outbound lead flow. And so we built an analysis tool that every time a phone call ends, that transcript gets analyzed based on our scoring system, scores the call, and gives coaching recommendations around the scripting that we want provided on that call. So that's one of the ones that we've developed recently, and that has had a huge impact. The sales manager is extremely excited because they don't have to listen to every single call. On their one-on-ones, they were doing one-on-ones with their team and saying, okay, what was your best call of the week? What was your worst call of the week? All right, let's listen to those or talk about those. Right? Instead of listening to the other 50 calls. Like, you can't listen to everyone's calls. So we developed this system, and now that sales manager knows what to have coaching conversations with the team about. We get real-time data. Every time a call comes in that doesn't meet our scoring requirement, the sales manager gets notified instantly. We're not lagging, we're not waiting. All of that has led to increased appointment rates, and then an increase in conversions on our sales process, because they're saying the things, they're setting the proper expectations on the sales call for the sales closing. That was a fun one.
That's so great, Jim. It's such a great example. And what I love about it, you know, in the construction industry, many of businesses within our industry have remote teams that are often dispersed, they're out in the field. So whether you're a sales team, sales manager and you're responsible for doing ride-alongs, or you're a production leader and you're responsible for your field crew, that like time in, it's not the same as an organization where everybody's together every single time, every single day. And so using AI tools to get some of that lift and connection that we might not normally be able to make is so great. And I think carrying it across other industries as we think about 2020 and the way that really changed remote work across a lot of different businesses, it's changed how we've been able to lead and connect with our team members. And so I love the lift from using AI to be able to have a little bit more, it's not management or oversight, but like actually deliver on managerial needs that employees desire and want.
To your point, our CSRs
Yeah.
are in Belize, and
Yeah.
our sales manager's in Tampa, so they're
Yeah.
not in the same room.
Nick drives a lot, so it's gonna change things.
I don't
for
drive
him.
as
Yeah,
much as
yeah.
Nick, but
It's gonna change things for him.
Yeah.
Maybe not. I know you like the in-person touches too. And that's not to say we don't give up on those, but I think, again, as somebody who's worked with a lot of leaders, a lot of us desire to be able to give feedback more often to our employees or have more of those coaching conversations. And as we think about our day-to-day, a lot of times work runs away, right? And so then we don't have time to sit down and actually review the metrics. So it's like, I think you're doing a good job. My general feel is like, you're great, or you're not. Well, why? What specifically? The time that it takes to pull that information, to gather that data, to provide meaningful feedback has often kept leaders from not having those conversations or from having kind of pretty light, sometimes meaningless conversations. And so I love this opportunity to use AI to actually empower your team members, to give them meaningful feedback that can change their job and that they can continue to get better. We're in Minnesota and a lot of us are that Minnesota nice, but I know the truth is we all want honest feedback that can help us get better. You don't have to like beat us down with it, right? But like give it to us straight. And again, I think a barrier from that a lot of times is not having the information, not having the time to gather the information. And so I love hearing ways that companies are using tools to really help their employees. That's fantastic. Ben?
As a safety manager, we do a lot of JHAs, and even as a foreman before that, it's kind of like a
Can
daily
you
thing.
say what a JHA is?
Yeah, sorry, jobs hazard analysis. So every day it's like, here's our task for the day, we're gonna put this window in or whatever, right? I need to go through that, okay, what do we need for equipment, or is it gonna be safe, do we have the right gloves? What are the dangers, could I trip, could I fall, could we cut ourselves? Like, you're supposed to think through all the things that could go wrong with your task and then write them all out. And again, 20 years ago when I started, it's just like on a cocktail napkin. Then we got some forms that you can kind of fill in on Google. But eventually I built a chatbot for this, right? I took Constructo and I made a version of it that is for JHAs. So it'll take those job site pictures and it'll tell me, hey, you're missing a hard hat, this guy's, the ladder's too close to the edge, or there's a trip hazard here. It's gonna identify those things visually. And then what I wanna do is write a report with it. And I love using the chatbot like that, and it's great. My guys don't understand what a chatbot is. They don't want to engage with it. It's just, there's a lot of pushback with that. So I took it a step further to try to meet them kind of where they were, and I put it in a format they're more used to, right? Like a website. So they can just go to this website now, and it's like, here, hit the upload button, put your 3 pictures in there, and if you want to draw on it or write a little note or put an arrow somewhere, they can play with it, kind of make it their own. But then they just hit generate report, and then in the back end, I have my AI there doing this magic, right? Going through the pictures, getting all the hazards, identifying all that, and getting maybe 90% of the report, right? It's still not finding every single thing, right? There's, if you can only see this, it's kind of hard to tell that's glasses, or sometimes it thinks there's a hole in the floor, but it's actually a puddle, right? So there's those kind of issues, but that's what's nice about it is because it'll say those things, and then I can, click on or off the ones I agree with, and then just kind of generate report. And what I've liked for that is instead of just me or a couple safety people in the field trying to cover 100 jobs, and we're driving all around and we're taking all these notes and taking all these pictures and then go back to the office and type it all up. By the time I write the report, that job is done, right? They're getting it the next day or hours later, and they're already done and on to the next task. And some of these contractors, a lot of them honestly, just pencil whip it, right? It's like, here's the report, here's what I need to do, I turn it in. I don't even have the conversation with the guys that need to know these things, right? So we wanna actually help people. It just makes that whole loop much quicker, right? So now every single guy in his pocket can take a couple pictures, and it'll instantly, within a couple minutes, tell them all the things they found for hazards. And that, like, taking out the latency, and now all 100 of my foremen can all do that. We're not to that level yet, right? I'm testing it with a few of them, but that's kind of my bigger vision, is being able to put that in the hand of each foreman in their pocket, right? So they can identify these hazards and then act on them quicker, right? And so instead of me sitting there writing all these reports, I can actually, find issues and help people and work on other fun parts of my job, like bringing a barbecue trailer in and cooking for the job site, which I love doing. But yeah, that's the fun part of the job, right? I want to be walking around, I want to be engaging with my guys. I don't want to be sitting in a job trailer typing. So as much of that time I can get back and then also multiply myself. And my ability to do that has just been a use case that we're really pushing hard on. I just finished the website and testing it out on a few of my crews right now, but ideally we'll expand that relatively soon. So.
Cool. I love it, Ben. I love how you took something that was actually a little more advanced than people were ready for, and you kind of brought it the other way so that you would get to utilization.
Right.
It reminds me of Betty Crocker when they first launched their instant cake mix. Remember, you've probably all seen a box cake, right? So when they first launched it, it was actually just water and cake mix. But people didn't respond to it because they didn't feel like they were doing enough. So they actually made it more complicated and said, okay, well, you're gonna have to crack an egg now, and you're gonna add oil, and you're gonna add water. And so they had a simpler product, but they made it more complicated because that was what their users wanted. And so again, as we're creating tools, we're creating solutions, we're thinking about what needs to happen. Could you maybe get to that solution someday? Maybe. But if you want people to adopt, you have to start with things that they're going to say yes to.
Meet them where they are.
Awesome, yep, so great. Okay, I know we're getting close. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I just have a question about that.
Yeah.
So, your people that are on site, they take like free pictures.
Yep.
And then the bot will analyze the pictures and say what is needed?
Yeah, so I have that bot. They don't use it, but
Okay.
yeah. So essentially, I took that bot and put it on the back end of a website, and so I just made like a little website interface so
Okay.
they can upload it in a style they're more used to, and it seems like
Right.
they're what they're gonna handle. And again, it's just meeting them where they are because they just don't engage with these chatbots, and it's just trying to reinvent the wheel, trying to lead them to water, trying to just try it, just talk to it, and it's just I don't know. Again, trying to meet them where they are and give them something they're more used to.
So does that work with just photos or video?
So far just photos. Video would be good too. That's next step. Yeah, so I just love because it's all in one spot, and so then I can start data tracking, right? And we can see, hey, in December, for some reason everyone doesn't pay attention. We have a lot more accidents, or I can see most of my accidents are of this kind, and so we can take those JHAs or my morning toolbox talks and actually address the thing that the problem is, instead of right now it's like spin a calendar and like, okay, today we're talking about fire extinguishers, and it's like, I hate that because it's like, here are the real issues, here are the real hazards we're facing. Why aren't those the things we're talking about? I only get 10 minutes to talk to these guys in the morning, and it costs a lot of money to have that conversation, right? They don't want to be having it. Let's make the most of that. Let's not talk about fire extinguishers for the 10th time because that's just the easy toolbox talk that's in my book, right? So that's where I want to do is taking that next step so we can utilize that time better to actually move the needle and hopefully help and save some more lives and less people hurt at least.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I do have a question. Have you used your glasses for inspection?
I have not. No, that's an
Maybe the-
interesting idea.
Your crew would like, having those glasses. It's pretty
Yeah.
cool. And you could
We can't even get them to wear
inspect
safety glasses. That's where I'm at right now. I'm just like, put them on. And those are $1. Yeah, I don't think my boss is gonna buy the other ones, but I love where your head's at. You gotta make them look cool.
Yes, it's $3,000, but some people just like,
Yeah.
having this gadget.
Right.
Maybe some would buy it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, the
I
Morrisons
know
of the
this-
world are doing this. They have their own
Yeah.
big, facilities. They're trying to reinvent this. They're bringing AI into it. They have these labs because you can't test a lot of this on a construction site, right? There's too many things that go wrong. There's too many clients,
Yes.
too many issues. But
You could do
they
that.
have labs where we can just pretend to build a building,
Yes.
pretend to pour concrete, and they're really pushing that. I think it's Project Blue something, they have it over here in Egan, but some contractors are really going in that direction, and I love that they're giving them the space to
Have
test
you
these kind of
tried
things.
them?
I have not, no.
Well, I would
Well,
buy
I
one
would.
pair to
Plus,
test
plus
them.
you can send subliminal messages into their brain and control the people that are working on the
Yeah.
website. They won't even know.
The union would love that.
Did you have a question too?
Yes, and you just identified why the glasses aren't glazed.
Yeah.
I was wondering, you guys all have great stories about the successes you have, and they sound very rewarding. I am wondering if you've measured them and what you see as the actual results from the measurement that you've done. For example, on the sites when you said fewer hazards
Yeah.
and fewer accidents, are there?
And again, yeah, that's where you gotta start tracking it, so we're just finally getting those numbers, and I'm interested to see how it does change, but yeah, it's a hard thing to do, because it's always changing. My hazards tomorrow are different, I have a different crew every day. Today we're, pouring concrete, maybe it's footings tomorrow, or I got a wall crew, or again, we have masonry, so tomorrow's block, so again, it's hard to compare apples and oranges, like, it's like, this has a lot more hazards because we're outside and it's winter and it's slippery, versus this is like an easy indoor work. And again, how do you compare those two projects? I don't know.
And
I'm
you don't
learning.
want to make it so that you don't give a group the technology and see what happens.
That's right.
And maybe for you, Ben, though, on that one, the measurement is actually just the time to completion.
Yeah.
Because if in the past you're saying that one of the barriers is like you weren't even having these conversations because it
Yeah.
was completed so delayed,
Right.
maybe the measurement actually isn't the quantity, but the
Turnaround,
like providing real time feedback. And so if you've shrunk that time,
Yeah. that's
a measurement worth ROI for sure.
Do you use net promoter scores to find out if the end customer that you have to satisfy is actually getting more satisfied as you go along?
Yeah. Also a great idea. I don't personally deal with Amazon. I deal with my company, and so yeah, it'd be interesting to kind of follow through that project and see how it does affect the overall decision. And
They're on their third Amazon building, so it must be going well.
yeah.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go here and then I'll come to you next, okay?
I want to circle back to triggers. From what I've heard from the stories, it seems there's three major ones: curiosity, complexity, frustration. And I love your story, because I think in the trades industry, this is the one where people will actually act, which is, I need to fight insurance and legal situations, and I am desperate to do anything.
Yeah.
So now I am helping a company who provides equipment and other services in the construction industry. We are designing a data-driven product, and I'm looking at your situation, and this is one aspect of getting people, and especially in the trades and how they run their businesses, to move to a different workflow is extremely hard.
Yeah,
And we're even talking about that insurance claims being the trigger to start the initial launch of this data need and inspire the customers to actually want to try it. I'm interested in more pain points around, I am just so frustrated, I do not care. What other scenarios are you using AI to fight back? Defensible data.
I love that question. I think actually it tees us up for the last one that I was gonna, as we're getting with time here. Let's go through and share. My next question for you was, where do you hope AI will go? Like, what problems do you want AI to solve in your business? Will that help hit your question, I think?
That's what those of us who are making products or coaching
Yeah.
companies for this.
Yep.
We are looking,
It's painful
yes,
enough to get the
what is
change
the
to happen.
triggers, and in this industry it's very hard. They
Mhm.
don't want to change.
I would say, not just this industry
Yeah.
though. Like,
Yeah. All
again,
industries.
coming back to the fact
Human-
that
all
you're
people,
asking
human
people,
nature.
what
We're
you're
all
asking
stubborn.
people to do is
Yeah.
change their behaviors and learn a new process,
But
right?
look at how the marketing is done in this industry, macho images and things like that. We have to flip the personas to who's actually running the business in the back end and needs that defensible data more than the people in the field.
Well, that's where I think you're probably on a decent track with it, because it's the small wins, right? Give them the wins, they see the value, and then they'll start consuming more.
We call it, in the personas we've mapped out, you have Bob the Builder, or chuck in the truck, right?
Yep.
That's where most of the marketing and the energy for the product sales go. We're flipping it into Sally and systems. No one ever talks to Sally in that marketing.
They're missing out, because she actually
And
has
we're
the
trying
power.
to flip that to say, here is where the data needs to be consumed and utilized.
Yeah, and my suggestion for you on that is still that Sally in systems isn't gonna be your key decision maker. So you're gonna need to find out why Bob the Builder cares that Sally in systems has more effective tools, right? So to me, like, yes, you're helping Sally, but you have to have that connection and the tie back to the ROI that the owner cares about, right? Yeah.
That's where the insurance and the
Yeah,
triggers
sure.
of,
Yeah.
like, that could put us out of business.
Yep.
Or we
Yeah.
lose a huge section of our clients.
Yeah. Or your competitors are doing this and they're having success.
I think that's a big part of it is, you know, I spent a lot of years in sales before I went to law school, and one of the things, you know, if you've gone through and had some really good training in sales, what you have to learn is you gotta figure out what people's pain points are, and then you have to push on them. And it's really uncomfortable, which is why a lot of people don't like salespeople. But people are not going to change until the pain of staying where they are is greater than the fear they have of making the change. And if you're trying to find a way to entice them and encourage them because this is a prettier, shinier ball, they're not gonna make the move because they still don't feel enough pain, or they're not acknowledging and recognizing enough pain of staying where they are to go after that shiny ball. So I think you gotta point the pain, and the pain is you can sit still if you want, but the paradigm shifted. And if you don't make the change, if you don't go along, you're going to get left behind. Other people are gonna surpass you. And if you can put the fear of losing what they have built strong enough to make them overcome that fear of change, they'll do it. One of the things that we see in the general construction industry is it's not about the construction industry, it's a business. It's a business no different than getting a haircut, getting your car fixed, it's a business. And most of the people that own and run construction companies chose construction because they didn't want to sit at a desk and run a business, right? And so they don't know how to do that stuff. And part of it, I oftentimes talk about the gauntlet. You go into your own business and you tell everybody that you know exactly what you're doing, until the day you sit down behind the desk the first time and you have not got a clue what you're doing, but now you don't have anyone to talk to because you've told everybody that you knew what you were doing. And I think in the construction industry you have a lot of that. You just have a lot of people who know how to build stuff, but they don't know how to run a business. And so you gotta find a way to build that fear in them and be this, you know, if you grab my hand, I've got the ring, I'll help you, but you've gone down 3 times and the water's here. So if you don't grab the ring, nothing more I can do.
Okay, so let's and I want to do twofold because there was actually one more question that I really wanted to ask. And so 2 things. One, where do you hope things will continue to go for you in your organization? And in that answer, will you please also share how you're thinking about what this means for your teams and like how you could be using AI to make work actually better for people?
Well, I, like most of you, I think, hope that I no longer have to go to work. Checks show up in my mailbox, my AI bots do everything, and life is good. That's nirvana. We may get there. I think generally what I anticipate this will do is it'll take more of the mundane, repetitive, mindless work out of office work. And it will give people who want to do things that are beneficial and valuable and can leave at the end of the day and feel like they accomplished something worthwhile, that they were involved in it. I do think we have, societally, I think we have a concern and a problem with the AI taking over a lot of that kind of work, because that's the kind of work that there are a lot of people that need or want to do. And I don't know what we're going to do when that disappears. That's a whole societal thing that we're going to have to struggle with. But as far as where I think it's going to go, I don't know. I was just reading about quantum computing, and some of you that are looking at holy buckets. What AI is probably going to do to accelerate quantum, and who knows what that's gonna do. We'll probably be communicating with each other just by thinking who we wanna talk to somebody who's on Mars and somebody else who's up on the moon. It's hard to say, but I think,
What would you hope for Minnesota construction law? Like, what's a pain point or a problem that you'd love to see AI solve?
I think.
Your billable hours issue?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's it. I think for us, what it allows us to do is to deliver value and price the services we provide on value rather than doing it based on time. And I think it's gonna give a greater opportunity for clients to work with us. I think it's gonna allow, and I hope that it allows us to provide tools for clients to be able to get more of their own routine information that they should know, that they might be coming to us, and allow us to be able to focus more of our attention on higher level things that'll make their businesses faster, more successful, and more profitable.
That's great. Thanks, Bill.
What was the second one?
How are you gonna make people's jobs better with AI?
I think that's it. It's helping them be comfortable with the tools so that they can learn how to be thought. You know, one of the ways I look at this is that I was able to give every single one of my employees an assistant with all the knowledge in the entire world
Yeah.
that they could go through much faster than anybody else could for $20 a month.
Yeah.
How do you beat that? How do you give your let's call it your lowest level employee an assistant? And how does your lowest level employee feel when they have an assistant that they get to work with that helps them do their job better and be more successful in what they do? I think
So good.
that's the way to help lift them up.
Yeah, and all kinds of assistants, a data analysis assistant, a
Oh.
training assistant, a content writer assistant, a code writing assistant, you name it, right?
It's
All kinds of
fantastic.
assistants, I love it.
I'm with you on the Nirvana.
I'll just let that work.
For tri-state drilling, it's similar. Like we're a lean and mean company. Like we don't want to have a lot of fluff in our company, so we don't want to have a lot of entry level support and analysis and I don't want to have to hire someone to read a geotechnical report every day of their life. That sounds painful to me. So it's like my ultimate goal for us is to allow the people to focus on what matters, right? Free thinking, problem solving, supporting the people out in the field to make their lives easier and keep work out in front of them instead of having to review invoices and review geotechnical reports and process any sort of data. We can focus on what matters, and that's the people out in the field, and then that's where I want it to go.
I love it, yeah. And I always talk with leaders about okay, remember that to-do list that you've had that's pages long, your someday list, all the things you thought you were going to get to. When you get through all that, then you can start eliminating your employees. Yeah, go ahead, then start considering who you're gonna cut. But I think you have some things that you can get done. It's just about helping those team members shift toward those things, right?
That's where I feel like I see, I like how you said, that's just kind of a society issue that we have to figure out, but for tri-state drilling, no one's losing their job anytime soon.
That's right.
They're just gonna be a lot more efficient. We're actually gonna be adding people that can also make us more efficient, so.
Love it. Jen?
For me, it's what I focus on day to day with the implementation of AI is the customer experience. So if anyone has anyone hired a contractor in this room and worked with a contractor? Was it fun? Did they show up on time? Did they have great communication? So that's what I focus on every day.
They haven't hired us.
That's right. So that's what I focus on every day, and that's where that's where my vision is how can this be as helpful to the consumer as possible. When I started building our AI voice systems, I was thinking I want to build the most human-like. Right? Let's build the most human-like voice AI systems. And then I realized, no, that's not what we're doing. I want to build the most helpful. So I think the lack of interaction with voice AI right now is that it's not helpful. It's like hitting that stupid IVR and saying press 1 for this and 6 for that. It's not a helpful experience. So now that's how I'm focused, and that's what we're building towards, is being as helpful as possible. And I think to these gentlemen's point, to Roz's point, if you could take that same focus into the employee journey and becoming and having adding helpfulness to each of those roles, adding assistance, having them work on more rewarding tasks. I think that's the journey there.
Love it. Thank you, Jim. Yeah, Raj.
Quick question for you.
Yeah.
So since you're talking about the future of AI and the future of implementation.
Yeah.
So voice AI, is it going to like grow in such a way that you're not going to recognize if it's a human or an AI talking on the other side? Or is it going to be so that so many people are going to like get trained in the AI that they'll not need a voice assistant or to come to a company for like questions or interactions?
That's a good thought. I think voice interaction is going to happen on multiple levels, not just when you're calling a company, right? So we're starting with the calling a company, but I think voice is how we're going to interact with most software in the future here. So that's just the interim. In the meantime, right now, the limitations of voice AI is turn recognition, hallucinations, things like that just don't make it a fun experience to deal with. So I think that as it develops, that it's just going to be how we interact with, it'll be the user interface will be more in voice than with anything.
More personal.
More personal, yeah. And it could be from anything. I don't know if anyone, like I talk to ChatGPT all the time now, right? I have conversations. I interact with voice almost all the time now. But I think it works better when you understand the limitations of it. If I'm calling a company right now, like, oh, it interrupted me. But if I'm just talking to ChatGPT and it interrupts me, I'm okay with it. So it's where do I find the helpfulness, right? What level of helpfulness do I want out of that voice agent at this time?
For me, it's moving the needle, right? I want to help more people. My journey in construction kind of went full spectrum. I was kind of a fuck safety guy 20 years ago. I was the guy doing this dangerous stuff. I was chasing the adrenaline. Then I had kids, and now I'm at a point where I'm coming back on that. But also, like, just as a foreman, when you're responsible for other people's lives, like, that's a lot of weight to carry, right? Especially a lot of guys, and then you start having injuries, and you start seeing people get hurt. And I've watched a few people die, right? And it's one of those things that I've had to make those phone calls. I've had to call young moms and say, hey, your husband's in the hospital. He cracked his head open. We don't know if he's going to be okay. You know, I carried him down the flight with the, paramedics, and he's at the hospital. And again, like, I don't want to make those phone calls, and I'm one person making those phone calls, right? There's thousands of those phone calls being made. If we could actually help people, if we could actually move the needle, if we could take some of the skills I've developed as a safety manager and then multiply them, right? If we could put 1,000 of me or one of me on every job site using AI, that's what I would love to see, right? Where we actually, instead of like, we just got so much more paperwork done, and we spent all this money. I mean, it's billions of dollars we spent on safety, and we haven't really moved the needle since the 70s, right? Like, let's be real, like the amount of money we spend on safety, you would think like we should have gotten safer, but it's just calculated in that so many man hours means so many guys are gonna die. And that's how we calculate every project. And it's like, hey, someone didn't die this time, we did good, or whatever that is. And so again, I really want to move that needle. I want to feel like that's a real contribution. Not that like when you build something, you're like, oh, I drove by that, and I tell my kids I built that, that's fun too. But if you could actually like save some lives, if you can actually help some people, if you can actually get into a position where you can multiply that, that's going to be a better world for everybody. That's kind of why I'm in the position I am and what I want to work towards.
And for you, so good, and like bringing, again, I hope a lot of this conversation has brought this concept of AI back to the humans that are using these tools and what it's like to be experiencing that, because I know a lot of you are developers in this room and you're thinking about the neat things that you want to make, and I love that, and thank you, and please keep going. And doing that with the employees in mind, and the users, and I'm sure all of you are very mindful of that. There is still a gap, right, in what, when you are so smart and you're developing these tools and you know them so well, and then you're giving them to someone who's like, I just opened ChatGPT for the first time, and that's their exposure with AI. Their lens for what AI is an LLM, right? We talked about voice agents, but like really, the average person in, especially in the construction industry, but many people outside across all kinds of industries, they're using it and they're experimenting with different AI tools, but their perception, their lens is an LLM. And so if that's the person you're coming to and you're developing all these things and these ideas and like you've got a solution, understanding what their need is, right, and what their problem is and the lens that they're coming to the table with. They're just trying to change a process. They're just trying to shift from like, I used to open my email and now I use the tool within my inbox to summarize those emails, right? These micro changes that they're trying to make in their day-to-days, and so just being mindful of that too. Then as an employee, like, what do you wish for? You know, maybe not, I love obviously the safety piece of it. Beyond that, just like, if you think about this idea that companies are getting more efficient and effective through the amazing tools that people are building and their upskilling of their employees with AI, what would you hope employers do with that productivity?
I mean, I want them to utilize it in a responsible way. Like, robotics are gonna come for most of our industries, and they've been coming for mine for 10 years. I remember the first time I saw a robot build scaffold, and I was like, oh my God, there goes my job. and then, like, you know, a couple of years go by, and then they got a drone that can just go up there and take the pictures and do the work now. And it's like, well, we don't even need a robot to build scaffold. They definitely don't need me to build scaffold. But again, like, it's just changing that process in a way that's more efficient. So now you can send out these drones and do it. Now, I'm not building the scaffold, those accidents aren't happening, right? We're taking all this hazards and eliminating them. Now, again, somebody's gotta work, like, we still gotta all pay our bills, there's some societal issues with that, but it's responsibly utilizing those technologies, right? And sharing some of that wealth, and hopefully, as a community, we can come up with some better guidelines for ways that we are gonna distribute that or how that's gonna work. But I'd much rather see a robot 3,000 feet in the air doing some dumb stuff, or working underground in a mine where you can't breathe. Like, again, I've worked in some terrible conditions and rendering plants and wastewater treatment centers and many places you just don't want to work, and that's where my people work, right? That's where we work all day, every day. And so, believe me, they don't, like, I've shoveled molten glass before, you know, like, for weeks on end. Like, it's not a job a person should be doing, right? But again, somebody's got to do it. And so, if we can fix some of those hazards, get robots or, you know, ChatGPT or whatever we can do to kind of make a hybrid of these models, but to actually, like, take those kind of hazardous jobs that no one really wants to be doing anyways, and automate them, I'm all for that. I think that's gonna help society as a whole.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Ben. Well, thanks panelists so much for letting me ask you questions, and I'll open it up with the time that we have left if there is any other questions that people have. Yeah.
So, you guys are obviously experimenting with a lot, and most people in the room are. How do you balance stitching together a solution versus sort of talking to your existing software providers about their roadmaps? Because if they're using it, they should be faster in delivering for you, right? So how are you balancing what you go build and stitch together and change the process for your team versus maybe waiting 3 months and seeing what your existing platforms can do for you? How are you guys thinking about that?
I've seen it a couple of different ways. Well, the way we're thinking about it, so we are watching the roadmaps of the software that we're using to see what's coming down the road. The implementation of AI products in a lot of the softwares that we're using is slow, and it, I think I was talking to Melissa about it earlier, is like I feel like everyone's hitting a ceiling in AI right now. I don't know if you guys are feeling that as developers, but it's like the 80% is easy, and it looks cool, and it's like, wow, it did that. But getting that additional 20% is, my goodness, that's hard. And I think that there's a lot of over-ambition from the software space in saying, we're gonna deliver this on our roadmap, and then I think they're running into the same issues too. So we're building an MVP, right? So I'll build an N8M workflow, and then if that works, then we'll move on from there. I do see a lot of business owners now going the vibe coding route and solving problems internally. I mean, I know contractors who are vibe coding, estimating software, and like I'm interested in that dynamic of what happens with the larger software companies and the personal software development that starts happening with the vibe coding. So Yeah, so we're just looking at it in terms of, what do we have a need for now that's not gonna be implemented? If we don't see it on their roadmap, but also I don't trust their roadmap is one of the aspects of it. To be honest, yeah.
That's in a less like technical approach to it, like just from a construction standpoint, we're trying to attack it on multiple levels. Like we have a consultant that we're working with on more so the like personal use level, like what our individuals can utilize these tools for. And then we also have a consultant, I have like 3 different sister companies, and we have a consultant at that level that's working on larger scale improvements for us that they can build for us directly. So we're trying to attack it on 2 different levels of having people build custom tools for us to help us accelerate, and then accelerating our people with the tools as well. Just try not to rely, and definitely not relying on the software that we're utilizing, because they're making their money on providing the software, not by
Making it exactly what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, you talked about vibe coding and also custom development. Are you seeing a need within your own organizations and with your own sort of experimentation and iterations where you reach a certain threshold yourselves and then you kind of go, oh, took it far enough and now we need external, like especially like I'm thinking about system integration or just scalability or performance or cybersecurity, like there are certain edges of all this experimentation that get a little edgy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
How do you know when you've taken it as far as you can and that kind of thing?
I have a theory on this, and so like as the world went to social media, I was in marketing, so we had a theory that every small business should have a videographer. That'll be a new role in companies, is videographer, right? And so that has happened in a lot of companies that do B2C. I feel like all the devs that are getting laid off disperse to small businesses on an individual basis and handle use cases like that, and that's my theory. But I do think that you do hit walls. You go, oh my, yep, this is as far as I could go with this. And then I have a couple of developers that I work with, and if you guys can do cool stuff, let me know.
Yeah.
I always like cool stuff. But that's where I think that's everyone's going to hit that wall with their personal software that they're building, and have a need for that for sure.
You're going to have whole new departments, especially in construction companies. We're hiring multiple, AI managers and different. Like you would never have thought that 2-3 years ago. So you're going to have a whole 1 to 2 new divisions within your company of positions that you never had before. So again, contrary to the eliminating jobs, it's creating jobs, because you need smarter people than us construction guys to do the tech, right?
What about
Well,
for
and
you,
I
Bill?
think, I was gonna say, I think, having been around back in the day when somebody came knocking on my door and said, we've got this cool thing called a website. And I said, I'm not gonna waste money on that, I'm already investing in all this advertising in my 5 yellow pages that I have to advertise. And we've watched that transition from the 5 1/4 inch floppy, right? And the one thing that has not yet happened is that it's stopped. If anything, it's accelerated. And as soon as people seem to be running up against walls that they can do internally, there's some developer out there that's finding a way to automate the thing that you used to need a developer to do. And I don't think if you from an business owner perspective, if you think that you're ever going to get to the place where you've made the last investment in IT, you're going to be, you're crazy.
You must be retiring.
Yeah, 100%. And so I suspect it's always going to be there. There's always going to be a need for the next thing, and there's somebody out there. I mean, that's one of the big, in the legal industry, one of the big things is the non-lawyer tech companies who are coming in and it's the old, those who say it can't be done need to get out of the way of those who are doing it. And that's a lot of what's going on, I think, across the industry. Right now, we're building these huge data centers that are sucking up electricity like crazy. How long do you think it's going to be before someone finds a way to stop needing all that electricity? Right? I mean, we call them phones. Does anybody use the bloody thing to actually make a phone call anymore? There's more computing power in here. I just think there's always going to be a need at the frontiers for people who are willing to try things that don't currently exist, and for business business owners who are always looking for that one advantage over the competitors. And they're gonna test and try things that are gonna need people like a lot of you developers who are finding ways to solve problems. It's kind of that engineering problem, but once somebody finds a way to fix it, then everybody else is gonna duplicate it until it becomes another problem. So for all of us in whatever business it is, if you wanna stay on top, you know, if you're not growing, you're dying. If you're not advancing, you're dying. There is no staying the same. And I think for anybody that owns a business, that's one of the messages that we all have to take in and understand, is that we just gotta constantly be innovating, constantly looking for ways to use these tools and find different ways to grow and incorporate them in.
And I loved what you said too about kind of this concept of the people coming out of the industry. You know, one of the things that I think actually more and more companies are looking for is developers and you know, people who are creating these tools who actually know their industry. Not somebody that's like, oh, this is an attractive industry that has a lot of money, so I'm gonna hop in there, but I don't actually know anything about these people, about this avatar, about this, it's just something I can create instead of actually having lived experience within that industry and knowing them intimately, knowing their challenges, knowing their problems. If that's not you and you're a developer, partner up with people who really do if you want to bring a solution to that industry. Because you know, that true knowledge of what those teams are experiencing on the day-to-day, that will give you a competitive advantage again and again. And so just something to consider too as you're thinking about how you can you know, start to or continue to create tools